I am Nicole, a 35-year-old woman. My husband, Brian, my mother-in-law, and our 1-year-old son, Ryan, live together. Both of my parents have passed away, and my husband originally came from a single-parent home. When I discovered I was pregnant right after getting married, my mother-in-law suggested that we live together. Nicole, since you don't have parents, you must be anxious about your first time with child care, right? I will help with the housework and child care. Why don't we live together? Having always longed for a family, I gratefully accepted her proposal. I used to be an office worker, but upon her advice that it's hard to work with a child, I quit my job. To an outsider, our family must seem very happy. Initially, I was thrilled at the idea of having a new family, but looking back now, it was a huge misunderstanding. Hey, why are you just lazing around at home again? You have me working while you just stay cooped up inside. You're really living the good life, aren't you? Ever since having my son, Brian often lashes out at me like this. At first, my mother-in-law was kind, but gradually she started to constantly nag. Are you still feeling like a guest here? You really are a useless daughter-in-law. It seems like I am just a nuisance to her. Indeed, I do tend to stay at home a lot. However, I began focusing on remote work when my son was around 3 months old, and I am genuinely working hard. Moreover, since I am in charge of both housework and child care, there is no reason for my husband to complain. However, it seems he has no understanding of remote work. Unfortunately, it appears my mother-in-law shares the same view. They find reasons to belittle my work. Do you know people like you are called useless? Is it called being a shut-in nowadays? Just seeing me open my laptop sets her off. If I try to work in another room, no matter where in the house I am, she quickly spots me and comes over. Are you playing with that toy again? At least make me some tea. Isn't your room cleaning finished yet? She says these things and immediately tries to put me to work. It seems I am no more than a maid to her. Although she doesn't work either, she insists that a daughter-in-law should devote herself to her family. She seemed reasonably happy when my son was born. However, it appears she has lost interest now and no longer wants to be involved with her grandson. To be honest, I don't even like children. They're always so noisy. I can't stand it. He's not cute at all, just like his mother. Despite it being her first grandchild, she heard such cruel words. Now she doesn't even bother to hold my son. If he cries, she looks annoyed and moves away, avoiding him if he approaches. While working, managing household chores, and taking care of my child, I also try to keep everyone in good spirits, keeping me constantly busy. Then one day, just as I had finished work and was preparing dinner, Brian came home unusually early. I put my son to bed and hurriedly cooked. Seeing me, Brian dramatically sighed. "Ah, you have it good, don't you? Well, I'm desperately working for this family. You're just relaxing at home, aren't you? Just cooking, cleaning, and playing with Ryan. That must be nice." His grumbling made me a bit angry. I'm not relaxing at all. I'm doing the housework and childcare, and I'm working properly too. I snapped back a bit strongly. Then Brian burst out laughing and looked at me with a resigned expression. "There you go, talking about work again. You know the kind of work you can do from home is pretty limited. It's more like playing than working, isn't it? You really don't understand the real world. If everyone could earn money just by messing around on a computer, then anyone would do it." Hearing this openly mocking comment, my mother-in-law, who was drinking coffee on the side, joined in. Really, how embarrassing. The neighbors also say to me I see Nicole is always at home. It's worrisome that she stays indoors so much, isn't it? About time she started working. When she mentions the neighborhood gossips, it's probably those chatty ladies she's talking about. They're just as intrusive as my mother-in-law and love to meddle in other people's family matters. It's so annoying to run into them that I hardly get to enjoy a leisurely walk with my son. I sigh as they said whatever they wanted. Well, you say that, but my son is still young, As I started to speak, my mother-in-law quickly raised her eyebrows. "Oh, are you talking back now? Generally, doing housework and childcare is a natural part of being a woman. Since you married into this family, it's only natural that you should be able to do at least that much. You're a stay-at-home mom after all." "I'm not just a stay-at-home mom, but it would be pointless to argue that here." Seeing me silent, my mother-in-law seemed to get carried away and continued, "Brian, you really chose the wrong partner for marriage. Older women just talk back too much, and to top it off, such a bad personality. I wonder what kind of upbringing her parents gave her. They must have spoiled her rotten." Feeling my face turn red with anger, I couldn't stand it when she insulted my parents too. "Don't speak ill of my parents. You never even met them." The words spilled out before I could think. Surprised by my rebuttal, both my mother-in-law and husband looked shocked. It seemed they hadn't expected me to fight back. But Brian quickly regained his composure and glared at me. "You shouldn't talk back to my mother," he shouted loudly. Not only did he, but he grabbed a ketchup bottle that was on the table and threw it at me with all his might. "Hey, what are you doing?" I couldn't dodge in time and got doused with ketchup. Moreover, I was wearing white clothes that day, so it would be difficult to remove the stains. Both my husband and my mother-in-law laughed loudly. I was stunned. I felt so miserable that tears were about to spill from my eyes. Why am I even bothering to cook for these people? And being with such a family couldn't be good for my son either. With that thought, my body moved on its own. I understand. I'm leaving. My declaration didn't seem to surprise my husband or mother-in-law. "Is that so? Well then, leave right now." "Oh well, if you want to leave, please do. It will be refreshing not to have a noisy kid around." Their blatantly cruel grins left me speechless. I couldn't possibly leave my son with such people. I quickly changed clothes and quietly packed my bags, careful not to wake up my son. Even as I headed to the entrance with my few belongings, my husband and mother-in-law watched without stopping me. "I suppose there will be payments and other things to deal with, but please take care of them," I said sarcastically, but my husband looked unconcerned. "There's nothing I need from you. Enjoy your homeless lives, since you probably had nowhere to go," I thought. Unbelievable. I was truly astounded by my husband's response. He probably hadn't even considered what would happen to the house without me. "We'll see about that," I said firmly and left the house. I really had nowhere to go, but for the time being I took my son to a hotel. After a few nights, my friend Anna offered to let me stay in her place, which I gratefully accepted. Anna's house is spacious. Anna has an older daughter who attends kindergarten, and she was thrilled to see my son, exclaiming, "Baby." The whole family was very kind, and despite my sudden visit, no one showed any displeasure. Hearing about my ordeal, Anna became genuinely angry on my behalf. "What's with that husband and mother-in-law of yours? They're not family, Nicole. You can stay here as long as you like. Why don't you live with us?" Anna said it half-jokingly, trying to cheer me up. To me, her words were so comforting that they brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you. Unhappy. I'd love to live with you, but I need to settle down somewhere." I had never been so grateful for remote work. I was able to continue my job without any issues at Anna's house, and I felt more productive than before, perhaps due to being free from stress. 2 months had passed since I started staying at Anna's when I got a call on my cell phone. It was from Brian. Initially, I ignored it, but he persisted with 2, 3 calls, so I reluctantly answered. "Hello, what do you want?" "Hey, haven't you cooled off yet? Why don't you come back? Mom's waiting too." What? I was astonished by his sudden request, but Brian kept talking nonstop. "Mom's been taking care of the housework, but it's getting tough on her body, and she can't do it alone. Plus, I miss your cooking. Didn't Ryan miss me yet?" Despite saying they were relieved when the child was gone, now he was using Ryan as an excuse. How selfish can he be? Don't worry about that. Why don't you order delivery? I was curt and about to hang up, but Brian persisted. Please, Mom's been spending so much money that we're barely able to pay the rent. If you managed the household like before, it would be enough. Remember when you handled the finances? We kept living expenses below $1,000, right? His desperate words made me laugh. Did you really think living expenses were below $1,000? What rent, utilities, groceries, plus the money Brian and his mother wasted. All of it was from the household budget. There was no way $1,000 was enough. I was the one who had been supporting the household's economy, unaware of such details. Brian pressed on. Come on, you must be struggling without a place to live, right? I'll let you come back under my roof. I forgive you, so come back home. Being told I was forgiven was absurd, as if I needed his forgiveness. But then I remembered something I had left unknown. I spoke to my husband. How about we meet and have a talk? How about at the cafe in front of the station next Saturday at 1:00 p.m.? Brian jumped at my suggestion. Really? Of course I'll be there. See you then, he said excitedly and hung up before I could reply. A week later, I left my son with a worried Anna and went to the cafe. When I entered the cafe, Brian, who seemed to have been waiting eagerly, greeted me. Oh, there you are. This way, this way. His voice was cheerful, but he looked somewhat haggard. His clothes were wrinkled and unkempt. Next to my husband, for some reason, my mother-in-law, who wasn't invited, was sitting there smugly, making people wait. What an unpleasant person. If it weren't for Brian wanting to see you, I would have been fine without you. She was as venomous as ever. However, it seemed like Brian, perhaps intending to appease me today, tried to calm his mother. No, Mom. Nickel has been reflecting. He patted her shoulder and then turned back to me. Nickel, it's been tough for both Mom and me since you left. We really need your help. I don't want Ryan to feel lonely either. It's okay if you come back. Brian spoke as if he were genuinely kind. Inside, I was laughing, but I managed to keep a straight face, nodding along with my mother-in-law and Brian. In front of them, I silently presented a piece of paper. They both looked down at it and fell silent for a moment. Hey, what kind of joke is this? It's no joke. Please divorce me. That's why I came here today. I said it cheerfully, with the biggest smile I could muster. What I had presented was a divorce form. Brian stared at the paper as if he might burn a hole through it, but eventually his face began to contort. Suddenly his calm demeanor flipped completely. He erupted in anger. There's no way we're getting a divorce. Just when I thought you were being stubborn, you pull something like this? His fury was intense. My mother-in-law, shocked, covered her mouth with her hand, but soon returned to her usual mocking tone. Nickel, what is this supposed to mean? How much do you want to trouble us? Brian, we should have just left this woman alone. Despite her words, Brian's anger didn't subside. It grew, and he shouted, spitting as he spoke, Do you have any idea how worried I was when you left? You can't even manage without me, and you pulled this stunt. You must be living like a homeless person, right? Where did you leave Ryan? A's now, and I'll forgive you, so kneel down right here. His shouting and banging on the table quieted the entire cafe. I felt the stares of other customers, but I couldn't just stay silent. Taking a deep breath, I addressed my husband. You're being too loud. If you were so worried, why did you leave me without contact for 2 months? Ryan is just over a year old, you know. Trying to calm him had no effect as his verbal abuse continued. You filthy homeless person, acting all high and mighty as if you know the world. It was going nowhere. I sighed and placed another document on the table. Here, take a look at this. His yelling stopped abruptly when I handed it over. The cover of the document read, Investigation Results. Excuse me, but I did a little digging, Brian. It seems you've been getting quite cozy with a young woman, haven't you? As I spoke, His face drained of color. I had suspected when I left the house that there was another woman involved with my husband. I had hired a detective just in case, and the results were as expected. Brian had been giving me living expenses, but of course they fluctuated month by month. Initially, he managed to provide $1,000, but then it dropped to $800, $600, and even $200 some months. It turned out he was spending most of his salary on his mistress. Bank statements showed charges from fashion websites, jewelry stores, and travel agencies, none of which I recognized. My mother-in-law was also pegged on the documents. She seemed at a loss for words. "Mother," Brian said, "life has been hard because you waste money. Isn't that funny?" "Well, you do spend freely, too." I said it with a laugh, and while my mother-in-law looked at me, she said nothing. She probably knew it was true. Brian, trembling, held the documents and suddenly spoke in a much softer voice. "I'm sorry. I'll break it off with her. So can you forgive me? You'd be struggling to live without me, wouldn't you?" His bravado was gone, and he looked up at me pleadingly. I felt frustrated by his sudden change of attitude. "Don't you get it yet? There was no way that you provided as living expenses would suffice all this time." Seeing his unreliable financial support, I had been putting several thousands of dollars into our home every month. My remote work was stock trading. I had dabbled in trading in various investments as a side job before we married, and I had seriously resumed it when our son was around 3 months old. My annual income easily reaches $3 million. If my husband and mother-in-law found out, I could only imagine how they might take advantage of me. I've kept this a secret with all my might as I've been the undeniable supporter of our lifestyle. Yet the thought of my husband spending his salary on another woman instead of on household expenses makes my blood boil. It hurt to pay for the detective agency, but it wasn't an amount I couldn't afford. Moreover, Ryan, if it is to find out what games you've been playing behind my back, this amount of money is nothing. My desire to teach my husband a lesson was stronger than anything. I explained everything to him and his mother as clearly as I could, and they both seemed unable to believe it. They were visibly unsettled, glancing back and forth between the document in their hands and my face. Also, I'm not homeless. I signed a lease and I plan to move there soon. A spot opened up in the property I've had my eye on for a long time. The security is foolproof, and there's a screening process for tenants, so not just anyone can get in. I'm moving to a mansion that costs $200,000, but it's goodbye forever to you. As I spoke with excitement, my husband and mother-in-law seemed at a loss for words. "I was really wrong, Nicole. I'm nothing without you. Please remember, once we promised each other a future. Please, Nicole, come back. I'll do the housework or anything else instead of you, please." Despite their sudden pleas, my decision was firm. "I've left everything to my lawyer, so please contact him from now on. Goodbye." Ignoring my husband and mother-in-law, clinging to me almost on their knees, I left the cafe. I felt more relieved than I had in a long time as I headed to Anna's house, where my son was waiting. Afterwards, my husband kept fussing, but when my lawyer threatened litigation, he finally agreed to the divorce. I also demanded compensation from my mother-in-law for her numerous mistreatments. Both complained, "How can you earn so much?" But who was it that underestimated me? I didn't care where my husband and mother-in-law ended up, but I recently bumped into the chatty neighborhood ladies. They seemed eager to talk. They gleefully reported the current state of my husband. I thought he would continue having a good time with his mistress in the home I left, but that wasn't the case. The mistress left him once she saw his spending flee. Moreover, they rumored that he was a lousy man who got dumped by his wife and cheated. It spread quickly at his workplace. He's now working modestly to pay off compensation and his debts. I thought he should be grateful just to be employed, but I kept that to myself. As for my mother-in-law, she's working part-time to pay me compensation and recently fractured a bone during work. She's supposedly rehabilitating, but it's doubtful how much effort my habitually lazy mother-in-law will put in. As for my husband, in addition to his debts, he now has to cover the compensation of his incapacitated mother. He better do his best. Meanwhile, my son and I moved into our new house. This spacious $200,000 mansion is wonderfully comfortable, and we live there leisurely. The security is solid, so it's safe even with a small child around. Anna and others often come to visit. My son seems more relaxed and laughs more than ever now that he's free from the nagging of my husband and mother-in-law. Once things settle down, I'm thinking of looking for a cute pet to keep my son company.
This morning, I found another strange bundle under my pillow. It was wrapped in red cloth and filled with dried herbs, bones, and dark powder. But instead of being scared, I just smiled. My mother-in-law was getting predictable. Another curse, Maya, my husband, Alex, sighed from the doorway. Mom says she saw dark spirits following you last night. Oh really? I held up the bundle. Is that why she left us this lovely gift? Alex ran a hand through his hair, something he always did when frustrated. You know how she is. Maybe if you just... Tried what? I interrupted. Let her burn sage in our house again. Wear the charms she keeps sneaking onto me, except that she thinks I'm the reason for all your family's bad luck. My mother-in-law, Mira, believed in spirits, curses, and bad omens, and for the past 3 years, she had decided that I was the cause of all her family's problems. It started at our wedding when Alex's dad had a small heart attack. Nothing serious, just too much food and dancing. But Mira took it as a bad sign. Then, when Alex lost a big job opportunity, she blamed my dark energy. The worst was when Alex's younger brother, Tommy, had a car accident last year. He was fine, but Mira was sure I had cursed him. I found her in our bedroom yesterday, I told Alex, picking up the bundle with a tissue. She was cleansing our space. Did you give her another key? Alex looked guilty. She just wants to protect me. Family means everything to her. Family. That word was Mira's favorite weapon. She always made sure I felt like the outsider. She never wanted me to marry Alex in the first place. What about the black salt around our bed? The strange symbols behind our photos? The dead chicken in our garden last week? Were those all protection too? She's just worried, Alex mumbled. Ever since Tommy's accident. Your brother fell asleep at the wheel after playing video games all night, I said firmly. That's not magic. That's exhaustion. But I knew facts wouldn't change Mira's mind. She had spent the past year spreading rumors, warning Alex about me, and planting cursed objects in our home. What she didn't know was that I had been paying attention. I had been studying her rituals, her beliefs, and her superstitions. Every charm she left, every spell she performed. I wrote them all down. I have to go, Alex said, checking his watch. Mom invited us for dinner. She says she had a vision about your aura. I nodded, already making a plan. Of course she did. Tell her I'll be there. After Alex left, I carefully placed the black bundle in a special box in my office. Inside were all of Mira's past gifts, cursed coins, graveyard dirt, even a lock of hair she claimed belonged to a witch. I had photographed, dated, and logged every single one. The full moon was in 3 days. Mira always said that the full moon reveals the truth. This time she was right. I picked up my phone and called my friend Sophia, a cultural anthropologist who specialized in folk magic. Another gift from your monster-in-law, she asked. Black bundle under my pillow, I said. She's getting bolder. Time to move forward with the plan. Sophia laughed. Everything's ready. She won't know what hit her. I glanced at my calendar, where the full moon was marked. Mira thought she was the only one who understood the power of rituals. She was about to learn otherwise. Perfect, I said, closing my journal. Let's see how she likes a taste of her own magic. Tonight's dinner would be interesting. Mira would probably serve her clarity tea, hoping Alex would see my true nature. But she had no idea I had a surprise of my own. Mira's house always smelled like strong incense and herbs, the kind that made your throat scratch. Tonight, the scent was even stronger. As we stepped inside for dinner, I noticed red candles flickering everywhere and new protective symbols above the doors. My son. Mira rushed to hug Alex, making sure to stand between us. I've been so worried. The spirits were restless last night. I raised an eyebrow at Alex, but he just looked away, caught between his mother's beliefs and my disbelief. Come, come, Mira said, leading us to the dining room. I've made a special meal to remove bad energy. The table was covered with her usual rituals, salt circles around each plate, black candles at the corners, and her infamous tea set ready on the side. I already knew how this night would go. Alex's younger brother, Tommy, was already seated, looking uncomfortable. He had tried to tell their mother that his accident wasn't my fault, but she had convinced him he was under my influence and couldn't trust himself. Maya, Mira said my name like it was poison. I had a vision about you last night. Really? I took my seat, purposely messing up the salt circle around my plate. I saw her eyes narrow. What kind of vision? I saw darkness around you, spreading to my family. She poured the tea, making sure my cup came from a separate pot. But don't worry, I've invited someone who can help. Right on cue, the doorbell rang. Mira hurried to answer it, returning with an older woman dressed in layers of shawls and more crystals than a jewelry store. This is Madame Verna, Mira announced proudly. She's a real seer. She will reveal the truth. I took a sip of tea to hide my smile. Everything was going according to plan. The spirits are active tonight, Madame Verna said as she took a seat. The full moon approaches. Secrets will come to light. Under the table, I sent a quick text to my friend Sophia. Showtime. Madame Verna will perform a revelation ceremony, Mira said excitedly. She will help us understand what's really been happening. Madame Verna arranged crystals and herbs on the table, pushing aside our dinner plates. I watched closely. She was performing exactly the ritual I had studied. Hold hands, she commanded. We must create a circle of truth. As we linked hands, the dining room lights flickered. Mira gasped. Right on time, Sophia. The spirits are restless, Madame Verna said. They have much to reveal. Suddenly, the room grew colder. Another trick Sophia and I had planned using the smart thermostat I had helped Mira install last month. Someone here has been working with dark forces, Madame Verna continued. Someone has been placing cursed objects. Yes, Mira interrupted. In my son's house. I keep finding them. No, Madame Verna's eyes snapped open, staring straight at Mira. The spirits show me someone planting these objects. Someone who pretends to protect but actually wants to harm. Mira's face turned pale. What? No, that's wrong. My phone buzzed. I pulled up my photo gallery, pictures I had secretly taken over the past year. Images of Mira sneaking into our house, planting cursed objects, performing rituals to frame me. The security cameras I had installed had captured everything. The spirits don't lie, I said, turning my phone so everyone could see. Every full moon, Mira. That's when you came to plant your evidence, wasn't it? I was protecting my family, Mira stammered. By faking curses? Madame Verna's voice was sharp. By trying to break apart your son's marriage? The spirits are not pleased with deception. Alex stared at the photos, his face filled with shock and realization. Mom, you've been sneaking into our house to do this? Tommy leaned in to look. Is that why you insisted on having a key? To set up these curses yourself? The lights flickered again, this time stronger. A sudden gust of wind, courtesy of the smart home system, blew through the room, snuffing out the candles. The spirits demand truth, Madame Verna declared, and they will accept nothing less. In the darkened room, Mira's face was illuminated only by the glow of my phone screen, still displaying the damning evidence of her deception. The security footage played silently, Mira sneaking into our house at midnight, planting her cursed objects, performing her rituals, all carefully staged to frame me. The spirits are not pleased with those who use sacred beliefs for manipulation, Madame Verna continued, her voice stern. They demand restitution. What Mira didn't know was that Madame Verna was actually Professor Veronica Martinez, a colleague of Sophia's who specialized in studying how supernatural beliefs were sometimes used to control family dynamics. She'd been more than happy to help expose Mira's manipulation. I did it for the family, Mira insisted, but her voice wavered. She brought bad luck from the moment she joined us. Dad's heart attack was from his undiagnosed high blood pressure. Tommy spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. My accident was my own fault for driving tired. And Alex's lost project. His competitor had better connections. None of that had anything to do with Maya. Alex stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. All this time, Mom, you've been trying to destroy my marriage, break up my family, and for what? Because you couldn't control everything anymore. The smart home system Sophie was controlling created another cold breeze, making the curtains flutter ominously. The spirits show me more, Madame Verna announced. They show me a mother's fear, not of dark forces, but of losing her grip on her son. They show me a woman who would rather create chaos than accept change. Mira burst into tears, but for once, Alex didn't rush to comfort her. Instead, he walked over to stand beside me. I've been blind, he said, taking my hand. Maya never tried to come between us. Mom, you did that yourself with all your accusations and schemes. I squeezed his hand, feeling the tension of the past 3 years finally starting to release. I never wanted to prove you wrong, Mira. I just wanted you to accept me as part of the family. But the curses, Mira protested weakly, were all planted by you, I said gently. Every full moon, like clockwork. The security cameras caught everything. The only dark energy in this family was the doubt and fear you created. Tommy stood up too. This has to stop, Mom. Maya's family now, whether you like it or not. The lights gradually came back on, Sophia's final cue. Madame Verna began gathering her crystals. The spirits have spoken, she declared. They say this family can heal, but only if truth replaces deception and acceptance replaces fear. Mira sat in her chair, looking smaller somehow. All her carefully constructed schemes had crumbled, exposed not by dark magic, but by simple technology and her own predictable patterns. I'm keeping the security cameras, I said quietly, and Alex and I will be changing our locks. But Mira, if you're willing to start fresh. No more curses, no more accusations, I am too. Alex wrapped his arm around my shoulders. That's more than generous, considering everything she's done. Mira looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. You forgive me. Just like that? Not just like that, I corrected. You'll need to earn back our trust. But family is family, right? Isn't that what you always say? 3 months later, things had changed dramatically. Mira started seeing a therapist to work on her control issues. The black bundles and cursed objects stopped appearing in our house. She even enrolled in a meditation class to help manage her anxiety about losing her sons. Last week, she invited me to help cook for the family dinner. No specialty, no salt circles, just regular food and conversation. As we chopped vegetables side by side, she finally asked the question I've been waiting for. How did you know? About the full moon timing, about everything. I smiled. You taught me well, Mira. I learned to pay attention to patterns to look for signs. I just used that knowledge differently than you expected. She nodded, actually looking impressed. Maybe you do belong in this family after all. Coming from Mira, it was practically a declaration of love. I accepted it as the peace offering it was. Later that night, as Alex and I got ready for bed, he noticed the small protection charm Mira had given me, a proper one this time, not a curse in disguise, hanging by our door. You're keeping it? He asked, surprised. Why not? I shrugged. Sometimes the best way to break a curse is to choose to believe in blessings instead. He pulled me close, kissing my forehead. When did you get so wise? Hubby and I grinned. Just something I learned from your mother. You need to leave. Your kids are too noisy and messy. Patricia slammed her fork down, glaring at me across the dinner table. My name is Olivia, and at 34, I was being told by my mother-in-law to move out of a house she thought was hers. What she didn't know was that before he passed away, her husband George had secretly left the house to me, knowing exactly how she would act once he was gone. The kids were just playing outside, Patricia, I said, wiping my daughter's chin. They're 6. That's what kids do. Patricia scowled. This is my house, and I won't have it turned into a playground. James and I raised Michael without this kind of chaos. She gestured at the children's artwork on the fridge like it was an eyesore. Across the table, my brother-in-law James nodded in agreement while his wife, Sophie, smirked. They had moved in months ago after James lost his job, but somehow, their presence never seemed to bother Patricia. You have until tomorrow to leave, Patricia continued. I talked to Michael, and he agrees. My heart sank. My husband, Michael, was deployed overseas, but we had already discussed Patricia's behavior. He told me to stand my ground when the time was right. I remembered George calling me into his study 2 years ago. His voice was weak, but determined. Olivia, listen to me. Patricia will try to take the house from you. She's always resented how much Michael loves you, but I've made sure she can't. The house is yours. He handed me an envelope with all the legal documents proving I was the owner. You'll know when to use these. Now, as Patricia planned how she would redecorate her house, I knew that moment had arrived. You can't just throw them out, Mom. Michael's sister, Lisa, said from the doorway. She usually stayed out of family fights, so her support surprised me. Patricia waved a hand dismissively. Olivia has money from her parents. She can find an apartment. I held my children close and whispered, "It's okay. We're not going anywhere." Patricia's face darkened. "Did you not hear me? I want you gone by tomorrow." I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. Patricia flinched at the noise. "Actually, Patricia, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," she snapped. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope George had given me. My hands trembled slightly, but I stayed firm. "George left something for you," I said. "I think it's time you knew the truth." Patricia's face twisted in confusion. Behind her, James and Sophie exchanged worried glances. They had been counting on staying here rent-free. "What are you talking about?" Patricia demanded. "George left everything to me." I placed the envelope on the table. "Not everything. Not the house." Patricia's hands shook as she opened the documents. Her face turned pale as she read. This can't be real." But it was. Every word, every signature, every legal stamp. The house was never hers. She had just tried to evict the wrong person. Patricia's hands shook as she flipped through the trust documents. Her face grew paler with each page. The dining room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and my children's soft whispers. "This is fake," she finally said, but her voice was weak. "George would never do this to me. He would never give our home to—" She waved a hand at me, unable to say my name. "To his grandchildren's mother." I finished for her. "To the woman who took care of him while you were busy with your social clubs." "Is that so hard to believe, Patricia?" James leaned forward, frowning. "Mom, what do those papers say?" I spoke before she could. "They say that George left this house to me and the twins. He knew what would happen once he was gone, so he made sure we were protected." "But that's not fair," Sophie blurted out, losing her usual calm. "We were planning to renovate the East Wing for our home office." I turned to her. "You mean my East Wing? The one you've been living in rent-free for 3 months. Patricia slammed the papers on the table. "I won't accept this. I'll call my lawyer tonight." "Go ahead," I said, taking out my phone. "Want Mr. Harrison's number. He handled all the paperwork for George." Patricia froze. She knew George's lawyer well. If he handled the trust, it was solid. Lisa, who had stayed quiet, finally spoke. "Mom, if George did this, maybe he had a reason." Patricia's voice rose. "What reason could he have for giving my house to her?" I reached into the envelope and pulled out a letter written in George's handwriting. "Maybe you should read his explanation yourself." Patricia snatched the letter and read quickly. I already knew every word. "My dearest Patricia, if you're reading this, it means Olivia has had to show you the truth. I know you're angry, but please understand. I did this to protect our grandchildren and the woman who brought happiness back into Michael's life. I watched you try to control everything and everyone, including me. But Olivia is different. She loves Michael for who he is, not who she wants him to be. She gave us 2 wonderful grandchildren who deserve to grow up in a home filled with love, not strict rules and criticism. The house belongs to her now. This is my final decision and my last gift to our family's future. All my love, George." Tears rolled down Patricia's cheeks. For the first time, she looked truly lost. "Daddy?" Emily tugged at my sleeve. "Are we really staying?" I knelt beside my children and hugged them. "Yes, sweetheart, this is our home." Grandpa George made sure of that. "But where will we go?" James demanded, his face red. "Sophie and I can't afford our own place." I stood up. "You're welcome to stay if you start paying rent. Market rate with a lease. The same goes for you, Patricia. This is still your family home, but under my terms now." Patricia looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. "You expect me to pay rent? In my house?" "Not your house," I corrected. "And yes, I do. George left instructions for how the house should be managed. I'm just following his wishes." The room went silent. James and Sophie whispered to each other. Lisa gave me a look of reluctant respect. Patricia just sat there, holding George's letter. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "He really planned all this?" "He did," I said. "He wanted to make sure the twins always had a home, and that I had the power to protect them, even from family if necessary." Alex's foot accidentally kicked the table leg, making a loud noise. Normally, Patricia would scold him, but this time she just stared at the twins like she was really seeing them for the first time. "I need time," she finally said, smoothing her napkin. "To think." I nodded, putting the documents away. "Take all the time you need, but understand this, we're not leaving. And things are going to change around here." As I took my kids upstairs, I heard Patricia quietly crying at the table. A part of me felt sorry for her. Losing control was her worst fear, but another part of me felt relieved. George had given us more than just a house. He had given us the power to stand our ground. Now, Patricia had to decide if she could accept the new reality or keep fighting a battle she had already lost. The weeks following the revelation brought dramatic changes to our household. Patricia had retreated to her sister's house to process, while James and Sophie scrambled to find alternative housing once they realized I was serious about charging market rate rent. My phone buzzed one morning as I was helping the twins with breakfast. It was a text from Michael. "Mom called me crying, said you stole her house. Want to tell me what's going on?" I sent him photos of the trust documents and George's letter. A few minutes later, my phone rang. "Dad was always smarter than anyone gave him credit for," Michael said, his voice warm despite the static of the overseas connection. He knew exactly what Mom would try to do. "Are you okay?" "We're fine," I assured him, watching Emily help Alex pour cereal. "Better than fine, actually. The kids can finally relax in their own home." "Good," Michael replied. "I've got your back on this, Liv. Always have, always will." 2 days later, Patricia returned. She stood on the front porch, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable without her usual armor of superiority. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. "To talk?" We sat in the kitchen, the same room where she critiqued my parenting countless times. But now she perched uncertainly on the edge of her chair, hands wrapped around the tea I'd offered. "I've been reading George's letter over and over," she began. "He was right about me, about everything." She took a shaky breath. "I was so focused on maintaining control that I never saw what I was doing to this family, to my grandchildren." As if on cue, we heard laughter from the backyard. The twins were playing in the sprinkler, something Patricia would have forbidden just weeks ago. "They're good kids, Patricia," I said softly. "They just need space to be themselves." She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. George knew that. He saw what I couldn't, or wouldn't see. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I had my lawyer review everything. The trust is ironclad. The house is legally yours. It's still your home too," I reminded her. "If you want it to be, but things have to change." "I know," she whispered. "I'd like to try to do better, to be the grandmother they deserve." Over the next few months, we all watched in amazement as Patricia slowly transformed. She started joining the twins for arts and crafts, actually participating instead of just criticizing the mess. She learned to laugh when Alex accidentally spilled his juice instead of reaching for her cleaning supplies in panic. James and Sophie eventually found their own apartment, realizing that depending on Patricia's favor had held them back from growing up. Lisa started visiting more often, remarking on how much warmer the house felt. One evening, I found Patricia in George's study, looking at old family photos. "I found these in his desk," she said, showing me a stack of pictures. They were all candid shots of the twins, Emily's first steps, Alex's birthday party, both of them playing in the garden. He kept every single one. He loved them exactly as they were. I said gently, "No conditions, no expectations." Patricia wiped her eyes. "I'm learning to do the same. It's not easy, changing the habits of a lifetime." But she looked out the window where the twins were chasing fireflies in the twilight. "It's worth it." When Michael finally returned from deployment, he was amazed by the changes in his childhood home. Gone were the plastic covers on the furniture and the strict rules about which rooms were off limits. Instead, he found his mother teaching the twins how to bake cookies in the kitchen, flour dusting all their faces. "Dad would love this," he whispered to me as we watched them together. This is exactly what he wanted. He was right. George's final gift hadn't just been the house. It had been the opportunity for his family to heal, to grow, to learn to love without conditions or controls. 1 year to the day after I revealed the trust documents, we hosted a family dinner. Patricia had helped the twins decorate the dining room with their artwork, proudly displaying their creativity instead of hiding it away. As we sat around the table, Patricia raised her glass. "To George," she said, her voice thick with emotion, who knew exactly what this family needed, even when we didn't know ourselves. I watched my children beam at their grandmother, saw the genuine warmth in her smile as she looked back at them, and knew that George had been right all along. Sometimes love means making hard choices, setting firm boundaries, and forcing people to face uncomfortable truths. But if you're lucky, those tough choices lead to something beautiful. Like watching a controlling mother-in-law learn to embrace chaos, or seeing your children finally feel completely at home in their own house. As Emily and Alex raced off to play after dinner, their laughter echoing through the halls, Patricia turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said simply, "for not giving up on me." I squeezed her hand gently. "That's what family does," I replied. "We give each other second chances." And in that moment, I knew George was somewhere smiling, knowing his final act of love had transformed not just a house, but all of our hearts.